makeup all over my jacket and it was all caked on. And then when I went back home, it was makeup all over my jacket. And my mommy bought me this jacket and you ruined it with your makeup.
JP, grow up. What's up, y'all? It's your girl Roxy with Roxy Says, and we're gonna talk about it. So today we are reviewing Love is Blind Season 5, episodes 5, 6, and 7, okay? So these episodes were a bit of a doozy. Let's get right into it, but before we do, please don't forget to hit like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you know every time I post a new upload, okay? Let's get into it. So as the episode opens back up, Uche is taking the walk of shame back to the men's quarters and he lets the guys know that Aaliyah left. And Uche is understandably confused because he's like, the last time we spoke, everything was good. We said, I love you. Everything was water under the bridge. So the fact that she's just not here and didn't say anything, I'm not understanding what's going on. And Uche himself says it's one thing to have a random ex, but it's another thing to be living with the ex of your potential fiance. And I'm like, I agree, Uche, I agree. So next we see Uche in his confessional. He's talking to the producers. He's expressing his frustration with Aaliyah leaving. And he's like, so she's like gone. They're like, yeah, baby, she's gone. Okay. Uche tells them that he can't accept this without speaking to her. He needs a little bit of closure. So production calls Aaliyah and they're like, hey, Uche wants to speak to you. And she agrees. And they proceed to have this conversation that really irritates me for multiple reasons. So Aaliyah tells Uche that her and Lydia actually had a conversation. And during that conversation, things got a little bit heated. She told Lydia, look, if Uche doesn't propose to me, maybe you could circle the block and you can get with him. And Lydia said, girl, F you, I don't want him. And I'm like, why did y'all deprive us of that footage? Y'all showed us a bunch of footage of them eating, twerking, and everything like that. That's a conversation that we would have liked to see. But Aaliyah says that Lydia was smothering her, and that's definitely believable because we saw that for ourselves. But she's crying, she's apologizing, she's telling Uche that she loves him and she still wants him. And Uche's like, so then why aren't you here? Why did you just leave me? And Uche has a point because what she's saying is different from her actions. She's sending mixed signals. And I'm like, girl, why are you crying when you're the one who left? But you know how Uche get down. Once he smells blood, baby, ooh, he going in for the kill, okay? And he gets into that condescending tone, that dad tone, that really shameful tone that lacks empathy, as if everything that's transpired has absolutely nothing to do with him. And then he starts going in. He's like, how can you let some girl get in between us? And then Aaliyah says, how do you know that when she was at your place, she didn't see an email or something and that prompted her to apply for this show? Now, here's my opinion on that. If that theory was true, that doesn't implicate Uche in any way. He would still be completely innocent in that situation in regards to him and Lydia being on the same season. It would just mean that Lydia was being a snoop. All the blame would be on her. So I feel like a reasonable response to that would be, no, that's impossible. I always keep my computer locked. Or, well, you know, that is possible, but I don't think that's what happened. Maybe it's just a crazy coincidence, right? Those responses seem pretty reasonable, but not Uche, baby. He immediately gets defensive and he starts cursing at Aaliyah. And he's like, did you just really effing ask me that? I don't effing know why she's here. And I'm like, Aaliyah, hang up the phone, baby. Uche got the right one talking to Aaliyah like that because, baby, the Brooklyn, New York girl in me would have cursed him the out, because who are you talking to like that? He then proceeds to tell Aaliyah that she's only thinking about herself. She's not thinking about him. And Aaliyah's like, are you thinking about me? And he's like,
well, obviously, I was about to propose to you.
Uche, if that's what you're proposing, these types of interactions, these types of conversation, oh, baby, you could keep that proposal. Keep it. But they go back and forth for a little while longer. And Uche tells production, here, take the phone. I don't want to speak to her. I don't want her number. And I'm like, you the one who asked them to call her. Anyway, that's why you hit your damn head on the mic when you were standing up. Yeah. Next, we're getting ready for Lydia and Milton's meetup. And baby, Lydia was looking good. Okay, the dress looked great on her. I loved the color. She looked good. But I did have to speed this part up because they were doing a lot of kissing and I was like, okay, we get it. Like, it was a lot. And had Milton and Lydia's relationship started off differently, like if she wasn't using Milton as a rebound, I would have loved this scene. But because I know what I know and I saw what I saw, I can't help but to look at this scene like, you know? And here's where we see that they joke on each other a lot. Milton is constantly talking about Lydia's pronunciation. In this initial meetup alone, I think he mentioned it like at least 2 times. He said, we're gonna have to get you flashcards. We're gonna have to practice. We're gonna have to work on that. And throughout these episodes, we see that she picks back at him about his age. She tells him he looks like a baby, and he tells her that she looks old AF. Although I think that jokes are really important in a relationship, laughter, humor is important in a relationship, a lot of jokes have truth behind it. And I wouldn't be surprised if those jokes started to get old or if someone took it too personally. Remember, we saw that with a few couples. Marshall and Jackie used to do that, and we know that went too far. Zenab and Cole used to do that, and remember, it went too far. Just really passive-aggressive jokes, but we'll see how it pans out. So it's honeymoon time, and we start off with the lovebirds, JP and Taylor, aka Sugar and Sugar Butt. And in this scene, Taylor pretty much tells JP that she still feels really awkward and his breath stinks. So they are off to an amazing start. Next, we see Izzy and Stacy, and they are definitely getting more comfortable physically, okay? And Stacy says that she's starting to get the feels, which is really good because remember in the pods, she said that she does have a little bit of trouble being vulnerable and opening up sometimes. Next, we see JP and Taylor again, and child, every single scene with these two is so hard to watch. It's really cringe, it's really awkward, and it's just like, just go home.
Okay, go home.
But you can see that Taylor is clearly trying to fight through the awkwardness. She's trying to make conversation with JP, but it is just like pulling teeth. On the other hand, the other couples, they're having a good time together. Okay, we see Stacy and Izzy and Lydia and Milton. They're in the shower together. They're in the bath together. Separately, not all 4 of them together. Y'all know what I'm saying, okay? But they're getting very acquainted very quickly. Back to Sugar and Sugar Butt, okay? We see Taylor constantly asking JP for validation. And I can kind of understand why she's doing that. Remember, she said before she came here, she didn't love herself. She didn't have high self-esteem. And now she met this man in the pods. They've fallen in love. Everything seemed great until they see each other. And now he's not speaking to her. So she's trying to figure out what the issue is. And of course, the only thing that's changed is that they can now see each other. So of course that's going to make her feel a little bit insecure, and nobody wants to feel like that. But this is the first scene where we get a little glimpse into what's really bothering JP. And as they're laying in bed, JP makes a comment about her eyelashes, and he says that the first time that they met, the pair of eyelashes that she had on were really gaudy, but he likes her lashes more now. So next we find out that 2 out of the 3 couples slept together. Can you guess who? We know who's not, right? Yeah. But both Izzy and Stacy and Lydia and Milton seem to be very pleased with the endeavors of the night before. Taylor lets us know how her night went, and she says that last night JP pretty much told her that she could do all the talking, and she's like, yeah, but that's not how a relationship works. We need to communicate. Now remember, Taylor is a kindergarten teacher, okay? So I'd assume that she has a lot of patience, and you can tell that she's really trying to guide the conversation. She's trying to walk JP into opening up and communicating with her more. Then she asked JP if he can imagine himself sleeping next to her for the rest of his life. And he's like, I don't. And she's like, and at this point, you know what JP was giving me? JP was giving me someone who's no longer interested in somebody, but they don't want to be the bad guy and break up with them. So what they're going to do is make the relationship miserable as hell until the other person says, I can't take this shit anymore, and they just break up with them, right? And then JP gets to say, well, I don't know what I did wrong. All I did was not speak to her. What's the big deal? So in the next scene, we see what looks like Milton and Lydia's first conversation about children. Lydia says that her time frame is more so 5 years. Milton is like, my time frame is more like 10 years. And Lydia's like, no, I'm gonna be too old by that time. And Milton says, you're already old. And I'm like, y'all didn't talk about kids in the pods? Why do y'all know each other's favorite rock and favorite mineral, but y'all didn't know each other's time frame for when you want to have kids? That's fine though, just keep on making out. So we see everybody's about to meet up. Stacy tells Izzy, don't speak Spanish to Lydia. And I'm like, girl, if Izzy want to be shady, he could do it in Spanish. He could do it in English. He could do it in Mandarin. It really don't matter, okay? People get played in all languages, baby. And it made me wonder, does she feel threatened by Lydia or does she not trust Izzy? What was that about, Stacy? Lydia sees Izzy and she lets us know that Izzy is the type that she would usually go for, but she's just so in love with Milton. Izzy also lets us know that he is attracted to Lydia, and they step off to have a convo together. And I don't know, but this convo seemed weird to me because it seemed like Izzy was low-key trying to cop a plea or explain to Lydia why he turned her down. But at the same time, he's telling her that they had a strong connection. And I'm like, what is the point of this conversation? Because I don't think that Lydia asked for an explanation. And we're going to see Izzy have another conversation later where I'm asking the same question. What was the point of this conversation? What is the goal here? But I kind of got the vibe that Izzy wanted Lydia to know that the door was still open just a little bit for them because they had such a strong connection. Tell me what you think below. This next scene had me cracking up because Milton is telling JP, it looked like you've been getting some ass. And JP is like, no. And the look of utter confusion on Milton's face had me cracking up. Next, we see JP and Taylor having a conversation, and Taylor is telling him that they're not as far along as the other couples. But that's pretty subjective. I feel like sometimes they can get into murky waters when they start comparing themselves to the other couple, but I can definitely understand Taylor looking at the other couple, seeing them hugging and kissing, and just wishing that her and JP shared that same bond. In JP's confessional, he's saying that as soon as they got there, he got the vibe that Taylor wanted to leave, but at this point, I was still curious, like, is there something that we didn't see? Is there something that we're missing? Maybe because she said his breath was stink. I don't know. Taylor girl, you could have said that off camera. But what we'll later find out is that JP was projecting. Now we're on to episode 6. And we see this conversation between Lydia and Milton that lasts way too long. He wants to wear gray shorts. She wants him to wear black shorts because she's wearing black. She wants him to match. Milton is like, yeah, no, I don't want to match with you. I'm not 12. And he's like, you probably lost your fashion sense because you're so old. There he go again. Next, we see JP and Taylor, and they're riding out to this little secluded area for a little picnic date. And they get there and they're sitting, and Taylor asks JP how he feels. And he's like, sweaty. Sir, you know that's not what she means. But JP takes that moment to comment on Taylor's freckles, and he says that she should show them more. Second comment regarding her face. He then tells Taylor that he felt more comfortable speaking to her in the pods because there was a wall in between them and he couldn't see her. And Taylor's like, well, you've dated in the past before, right? So us being in person shouldn't be this foreign to you. And she's right. Meanwhile, things seem to still be going good between Stacey and Izzy, okay? Clearly, Izzy been putting it down because Stacey just can't seem to talk about anything other than that dick.
Yeah, daddy.
And she also lets him know if he want to hang her off the ceiling fan, she is okay with it. And they share a sweet I love you, and I'm like, they're so cute, aren't they? Next, we see the bossy chat come up between Milton and Lydia. Remember, at the reveal, he loved that she was so bossy, but I guess now living with her, he's seeing he don't love that she's so bossy. She's telling him what pants to wear. She's hinting at him being in the shower too long, and we'll see how she speaks to him in later episodes. It's like, no ma'am. Ciao. Next we get this conversation, and I know it had Sephora, Ulta Beauty, and MAC shaking in their boots, okay? Taylor and JP are in the bed. Again, Taylor is telling him that she doesn't feel that they are where they should be at this point in the relationship. And JP immediately starts going in, and he's like, it's because you're making it awkward. You can't get past it. You have one foot out the door. You won't change. And I'm like, well, JP, what the hell have you been doing to make things less awkward? Because even aside from that stinky breath comment, I do feel that Taylor has been trying to make conversation with him. And he tells her that she couldn't get past day one. Meanwhile, he couldn't get past day one. Child, then this man says that the day of the reveal, Taylor had on makeup, and that made him feel like she was fake. And it would have been better if she had presented herself the way that she's presenting now without any makeup on. What? So what's the issue now? Because in all honesty, over the past couple of days, I've barely seen Taylor wear any makeup, and you've still been acting like this. So you telling me you still stuck on the makeup she had on reveal day? Then he starts going in and he's like,
yeah, and you had makeup all over my jacket and it was all caked on. And then when I went back home, it was makeup all over my jacket. And my mommy bought me this jacket and you ruined it with your makeup.
JP, grow up. Has he not seen this show before? All of the women on this show wear makeup in all past seasons. And as we all know, on the day of the reveal, the ladies get extra dolled up. Don't come on a show where you can't see if a person is wearing makeup or not. And by Taylor's reaction, this is clearly the first time that she's hearing this. He never made that clear in the pods. Then he tells her not to wear makeup. She doesn't need it. She should be happy that he's telling her this. Any other woman would be happy for their man to tell them this. No, sir. And immediately I'm like, Taylor, go home, baby. This man is immediately trying to change you. Set him free so he could go out into the world and he can date a woman who gladly wears no makeup, because there are many women like that who he won't have to change. She tells him that she doesn't want to spend the night there and he starts cursing. He's like, he don't care. That's fine. I don't give a F. And it's like, really? In this instance, you know what I wish? I wish that Taylor asked JP about his attire just to see what his reaction would be. I wish that she said, you don't have to wear red, white, and blue all the time. I don't like it. Stop wearing it. Something that he clearly likes and that he's been doing for quite some time. I just want to see if he would be as ready and willing to change that about himself as he wants Taylor to be to change something about herself. Nick and Vanessa, please ask that at the reunion. So Taylor tells JP that she's done with this conversation for now. Maybe they can talk about it tomorrow. And I'm like, girl, what more is there to talk about? But the next morning they see each other. He tells her that he wants to work past the issues that they got going on because they do have a real connection. It's over for that. And Taylor tells him that she just doesn't feel the same way that she felt about him in the pods. He is not the person who she fell in love with. And even though she still cares about him, she's just no longer comfortable with him. She also feels like the whole makeup thing is just some type of excuse, but she says she doesn't want to move in with him. She doesn't want to be engaged with him. She just wants to go home. And I said, period. And in all honesty, him using the makeup thing as a cop-out wouldn't be too far-fetched, right? He thinks that she's gonna break up with him, so maybe this was his way of trying to self-sabotage and beat her to the punch. Or maybe he really just is that hung up over her makeup, which is crazy. So they say goodbye to each other, and now we are down to 2 couples. So we see the couples back in Houston with only 3 weeks until the weddings. This will be both Lydia and Milton's first time living with a partner, so obviously that's gonna take some adjustment, some getting used to. They're figuring out work schedules, and it looks like they might not be seeing a lot of each other because of their jobs. And Lydia don't seem too happy about that. So they go to Milton's place, and Lydia says that his place is giving undergrad, like a 24-year-old. And I'm like, yeah, girl, he's 24. You gonna get what you get. But the place definitely looks clean and well kept. Now she makes a big deal because he got 2 cowskin rugs. She don't like that. Then she goes over to his microscope. She goes to touch it and he tells her, hey, don't touch it. I have it on a specific setting. This is an old microscope. It can break easily. Please don't touch it. She still wants to touch it. And he literally has to like strong arm her so that she doesn't touch it. And we can see that in this relationship, there's always going to be some type of power struggle with who's going to listen to who's going to follow whose directions. We can already see that developing. So next we see Milton's roommate, Josh, comes over and he's like the ultimate wingman. He talks Milton up. He tells Lydia that he's heard nothing but great things about her. He tells Lydia that Milton is very educated, very accomplished, which we all know, and that he's definitely ready for marriage. Next, we see Izzy go to Stacy's home, which is in renovation. And I honestly got Bartiste and Nancy vibes in this scene. Remember when Bartiste went to Nancy's home and he was looking around like, oh, okay, she got a couple properties, she got some money. That's the vibe that I got from Izzy. He was looking around. He was like, ooh, I can't wait to live here. I'm so excited to live here. But when that money conversation came up, oh, that excitement quickly dwindled. But let me say this, I'm happy that Stacy brought that up. Money is such an important conversation to have when you are entering into a relationship. I know it makes people very uncomfortable, so a lot of people avoid it. You have to have it. It is a must. And I fully expected Izzy to be very uncomfortable with this conversation, given what Johnny said about his credit. Now, we don't know if it's the truth, but the way he was acting, it might be true. So they go into the conversation of things being paid for in her house, right? She says if her HVAC goes out, it could be 10 to 20K. How would he go about helping her with that? And he says it's her house, but he would do 50-50. Then she says, what about dinner? He says 50-50. She's like, what? Now, I wasn't surprised by Izzy's response at all. In all honesty, that is exactly what I was expecting him to say. If you saw my cast reveal video in Izzy's bio, he says that he was going on 2 to 3 dates per week for like 3 years. And I said, that's expensive. I definitely got the impression that he's not trying to wine and dine. He goes Dutch a lot, or he probably does a lot of coffee dates. 50-50 is exactly what I was expecting. But Stacy said, no, the man pays. And he's like, so do you expect me to just pay for everything? Like all the time? And Stacy says, look, I work hard because I like nice things. I like luxury and I don't want to sacrifice having nice things. And Izzy says that this is new for him. And it kind of sounds sounds like he's never been in a relationship with anyone who required much of him financially. But his body language was making me anxious. His eyes were watering. I was like, Izzy, are you okay? Is he gonna be able to make it through this conversation? And you can also tell from this conversation that they did not discuss finances much in the pods, like at all. And in all honesty, had Izzy known about Stacey's finances, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't pick her just out of fear for not being able to measure up, because we do know that he does have issues with abandonment. Next, we see Aaliyah and Uche meet up, okay? First of all, Aaliyah, I love the twist out, sis. It was really cute. She looks really beautiful. And as soon as Uche sits down, Aaliyah reiterates that she loves him, she wants to be with him, she would marry him, and her heart is in his hands. And I'm like, girl. So now we're on episode 7, okay? And Aaliyah lets Uche know that she got way more information from Lydia than she did from him, right? Information that she didn't even want to know. Uche said that he wanted to be honest with her, but he wanted to protect Lydia. And he also didn't want to come off as one of those guys who talk smack behind a woman's back. And I'm like, okay, I can understand that. But on the flip side, he also admits that he wishes that he told her everything, because then that would have gave her context and that would have given her the ability to keep her guard up way more when coming to Lydia. He says that he broke things off because Lydia invaded his privacy. But even after he broke things off, she kept contacting him. Then he says that people started telling him that she was looking through their stories. And I'm like, okay, so these friends that Uche has were just randomly going through their stories and looking for Lydia specifically. How do they pick out Lydia from all of the people in their stories? Do they only have 6 friends, so it was easy to spot her? You get what I'm saying? It's like, let me open up Instagram and just check if my friend's ex is looking at my stories. Like, how does that even come about? Then Uche says that Lydia had sent him a picture from outside of his driveway, and she said, I see you, and that creeped him out, okay? He says that Lydia is obsessed with him, but she was going through a big loss, so he really wanted to be there for her. Aaliyah says that she doesn't like that Uche was so concerned with Milton. She was like, why were you going to Milton telling him that Lydia wasn't ready for a relationship? Like, that shouldn't have even been a concern of yours, which is true. Then Aaliyah says that she found out that Lydia knew that he would be here. And Uche's like, she told you that? And Aaliyah says that Lydia told some girl that she just had a feeling that she was going to run into someone who she knew while on this show. And she also says that after that phone call they had, because of his reaction, she was like, well, damn, did they conspire to be here together? And I totally understand why Aaliyah would feel like that. Like I said, to me, her bringing that up was a reasonable question. It didn't warrant him like cursing at her and all of that stuff. It made him look guilty, okay? It did. Also, if you saw my last video about production spilling the tea about Uche and Lydia, a couple of people commented and said that they watched another podcast with Deepti and Natalie, right? And those comments said that in that podcast, those ladies said that the vetting process is not as rigid and as strict as production is trying to make it seem. There have been other cases where people knew other people in the pods. But of course, Uche laughs it off and he's like,
that's impossible. That's crazy. That's preposterous.
And I'm like, is it though? Honestly, I'm not ruling anything out. It's possible that Lydia followed him. It's possible that they asses conspired together. It's possible that it's just a crazy coincidence, but I'm not ruling out any of the possibilities. Child, why did Aaliyah tell him that they should have just went on the ultimatum? Now that would have been some good TV. But Uche tells Aaliyah that when she got home, she followed him, she unfollowed him, she sent a voice message, then she unsent it, then she blocked him, unblocked him, and ultimately he breaks up with her, and honestly, it's for the best. These two clearly have no business being together. Thank you. Do not come again. Bye. Ciao. So next we go over to Izzy's apartment. His apartment is nice. It's clean, except for them dirty ass shoes on the bed. We learned that Izzy has a lost and found. So what is this lost and found, you might ask? It's a little drawer in his bathroom, and inside of it, he has little trinkets, little earrings, little scrunchies, hairpins, things that ladies have left over at his house. And I don't know about you, but I have a couple of questions. Like, why is he keeping those things? Is he expecting these women to come back? Is he a serial killer? Just, regular questions that need answers. Next, Stacy goes to the kitchen. She opens the cabinets and he has the paper plates and the Solo cups stacked up. He has no plates, he has no cups, no glasses, no silverware, and Stacy is shocked and appalled, okay? And it's a really big deal to her. And it's a really big deal to him that it's a big deal to her. Now, we already know that he was feeling a little bit intimidated by that conversation that they had while they were at her home about finances. Now she in his kitchen talking about his Solo cups. He don't like it. But she gives him a little break on the Solo cups for like 5 seconds so that she can go back to his lost and found. And she's like, why do you still have this shit? Why did you leave it there? And he says that he wanted to show her the raw him. And she's like, so you wanted to show me that you were a F-boy? Like you wanted me to see all of the trinkets of women who you've been with? Stacy sees him keeping those things as a sign that he's not ready for true commitment. She's like, look, I had things in my home from exes, but I knew that you'd be coming there, so I made sure to get rid of those things. So they're going back and forth, and Stacy cuts Izzy off, and Izzy's like, can you stop cutting me off? And Stacy's like, and she just walks out of the kitchen into the backyard. So Izzy follows her out there, and she's like, look, I just want to go home. I don't even want to be here anymore. But Izzy holds her, and he's like, I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to fight for you. And of course, that means a lot to Stacy because, as we know, she has abandonment issues as well. Next, we see Milton meet Lydia's mom and brother. I love Lydia's brother. He keeps it real in a funny way. The meeting is really cute. Both Lydia's mother and brother really seem to like Milton, but Lydia's brother does let him know she can be demanding, okay? That's just how she's always been. But Milton says that they usually always find a compromise. And Lydia's like, yeah, we always find a compromise. I tell him what I don't like and he changes it. That's the compromise. I was like, girl, that don't sound like much of a compromise to me, but okay. But you can see that Lydia's brother and mother really love her. They just want to see her happy. They just want what's best for her. And they do give Milton their blessing. They welcome him to the family. And you can tell that they're excited about this relationship. Next, we see Izzy and Stacy, and they going over to Stacy's rich daddy's house, okay? So the whole family is there. They are very welcoming to Izzy. We see that Stacy has 2 sisters, and they get right into the conversation. Now, Stacy volunteers the information about Izzy just getting his passport. And I'm like, girl, you didn't have to say that in front of all of them. And then Izzy has to come up with a reason as to why he's just now getting his passport. It's safe to assume that he just got his passport for this show, right? So that he can go wherever the honeymoon was. But he says that he wasn't financially ready to travel, and now he is. And we see Stacy's dad take a deep breath. One of the sisters asks Izzy what he does for a living, and this man starts rambling, okay? And Stacy's mom just cuts the shit. She's like, do you have a job? And I understand her interjecting and asking that because it's like, why is it taking you so long to say what your job is? Then Stacy brings up the paper plate thing, and I'm like, okay, sis, now you're dragging it. Now you're dragging it. This is not a conversation that you need to have in front of your family. Clearly, it's embarrassing for him. First, you told everybody he just got his passport yesterday. Now you saying that all he got is paper plates and Solo cups. Like, girl, But this leads into them talking about the big disagreement that they had. And Izzy says that was a great night for them. And Stacy keeps it real and she's like, not for me. Like, no, it wasn't. Don't try to sugarcoat it. But they both say that what meant the most to them that night was that they didn't leave each other. They stayed together. And we see Stacy get really emotional when discussing, again, abandonment and divorce. So we can see that Stacy is prioritizing the fact that Izzy is willing to stay with her over all of the other red flags that are popping up in their relationship. So then Stacy's dad takes Izzy outside for that man-to-man talk. And when I tell you Stacy's dad reminds me so much of my dad, everything that this man is saying is the same thing that my dad would say. They got Stacy's dad. He posted up on his sports car. He's like, look, love is great, but love don't pay the bills. And I'm like, period, sir. It don't. Love needs food. Love needs shelter. Love wants to fly first class sometimes. And he asks Izzy where he sees himself in his career. And I think he said 5 to 10 years. And in response to that, Izzy says with his current earning potential, sky's the limit. And Stacy's dad is really nice about it. He says, look, I don't want you to think like the sole focus is money, but I just want you to know that it's important. He mentions her house. He lets him know that if Izzy can't take care of things, yeah, he's going to be there to take care of it. But I feel like in that conversation, we can see that if Izzy is not able to take care of things, he gonna hear Stacey's dad's mouth about it, okay? Because clearly in their family and what they're used to, the man is supposed to provide. That's how they get down over there. Stacey's dad is just letting Izzy know, this is the territory that you're walking into, and you're gonna have to be able to provide for my daughter. He says it really nicely, but that's what he's saying. So now it's 13 days until the wedding, and this is where we have the big meetup where everyone who hasn't met each other before meets each other. Interestingly enough, JP and Taylor didn't come to this meetup. I kind of thought that we would see them. I was looking forward to see if they would have some type of conversation, but maybe it's for the best. So we see a lot of old faces. We see Renee. We see Miriam the spy. Okay, we see Maris. Everybody looks great. And in Stacey's confessional, she says that she really felt bad for Johnny once she found out that both her and Johnny were interested in Izzy and Izzy dumped her. But she says once it was known that Izzy had proposed to her, Johnny went around the quarters talking mad shit about Stacey. So now Stacey's like, oh, it's up and it's stuck. She don't want no parts of Johnny. And we know that that's true because we saw Johnny talking shit about both Izzy and Stacey while in the quarters. Next, we see Chris come through and Johnny lets everyone know that her and Chris are together. Chris, we were all rooting for you. What happened? But they tell the story about how they met on the way home. They were both at the airport. Chris made a phone call, and I guess they recognized each other's voices, and they touched, and they've been dating ever since. And I'm like, great. Imagine if Chris and Johnny turn out being the only successful couple of this entire season. Wouldn't that be crazy as hell? That would be crazy. So next we see Izzy speaking to Johnny, and I'm like, is production telling Izzy to have these conversations, or is he going and having these conversations all on his own? Izzy is telling Johnny that he didn't like the fact that she was telling him one thing and telling Chris another thing. Johnny says, no, that's not what I was doing. He's like, yeah, it was. And Johnny's like, why does it even matter? And apparently Izzy feels away because I guess Johnny gave him the impression that he was number one, but now he's finding out that Chris was also number one. And she says, no, you were my number one until you dumped me. And then I replayed our conversations. And now I'm trying to make things up with Chris because he should have been my number one to begin with. And then Izzy says, let me offer you some advice. And Johnny's like, I don't want your advice, okay? And Izzy's like, well, everyone here thinks that you're sketch. And Johnny's like, I'm not sketch. That's not true. And she gets really upset and she gets up. She goes and she tells Chris what Izzy said. She's like, Izzy said that I'm a shitty person and that everyone here thinks that I'm sketch. And Chris is like, no, that's not true. No one here thinks that but him. No, Chrissy Poo, a couple people do think that. But then Izzy goes to Stacey and he is clearly bothered, okay? Izzy is bothered. And he's like, I effing railed her. I love you so much. I'm so happy that we're here together and that we're on the same page. And Stacey's like, is everything okay? Like, are you good? And I totally agree with Stacey when she's like, don't come over here saying, oh, I'm so happy that I'm with you just because you just had a bad conversation with Johnny. Like, don't do that. And I feel like here's where we're starting to see Izzy kind of unravel. I honestly feel like he feels a way that both of his exes are like good without him. Lydia is happy with Milton and Johnny is happy with Chris. And I think that bothers Izzy in some weird type of way. Child, now we see Uche arrive. He goes right over to Lydia, asks if she wants to have a conversation. She tries to act like she doesn't. Girl, you know you want to talk to that man. Just get the shit over with. So they step aside and Uche is telling Lydia all of the things that he loved about her and loved about their relationship. It's not giving one night stand, casually dating. It's giving relationship. It's giving relationship. And then they get into this whole back and forth about honesty, and Uche claims that he was honest and Lydia claims that she was honest, but then she accuses Uche of not being completely honest up front. And I'm like, that sounds like a pattern of Uche's. Now, I don't want to say I told y'all so, but I told y'all so. And I had to watch this clip a couple of times to make sure that I heard what I heard. In this next clip, without saying it directly, Uche admits to cheating on Lydia, but what he's doing is making a bigger deal about her going through his things to figure that information out.
You weren't being exactly honest with me. And
you weren't being honest with me either.
But in that moment I was, because I revealed everything to you. You asked me a question, I was honest with you, and I said, what made you ask that question?
After a while.
But I told you, but I told you the
immediately.
truth at the end of the day, and then I asked you what made you ask that question, and you were not honest. You said, oh, I just had this intuition.
And I did.
You were going through my things.
This man is crazy.
He slept with a girl when he was dating with me, and then had the nerve to judge Aaliyah when she told her about her past.
Uche actually cheated on her. And then the convo starts to get more and more heated. And Lydia's like, look, I don't even want to have this conversation. She gets up and she leaves. And then due to some weird editing, we see Lydia magically back at the table with Uche. And Uche pretty much tries to dismiss Milton. And he's like, hey, Lydia and I are having a conversation. Is it okay if you give us some privacy and then I'll talk to you after? And Milton is like, well, that would be okay, but we have to be somewhere in 10 minutes. Where the hell y'all gotta be? You're filming a show. But look at the way that Uche looks at Lydia as if to tell her, tell your little boyfriend to skedaddle. We got some real business to talk about. And Lydia actually dismisses Milton. That little scene alone makes me feel that Uche and Lydia have something way deeper than they've been letting on this entire season. Then Uche pulls up these screenshots from the whole Instagram stories mystery, and I'm still giving that the side eye, honestly. But then when he brings up the picture in the driveway situation, Lydia says that they were actually speaking on the phone when she sent that picture. And when she says that, he does not deny it. He's trying to make it seem like she's a stalker when that's really not what happened.
I'm not the one that was stalking people's Instagrams.
Milton!
Lydia.
Where's Milton? Milton!
I feel that Lydia is a lot. Uche knows that. And I feel like he's playing on that to make Lydia look even crazier to us and to everybody else when he fully knows what he did. And he fully understands why she's acting the way that she's acting. A whole lot of things can be true at the same time. I definitely believe that Lydia was going through his things. I would not be surprised if Lydia was looking at his friend's stories. And I still think that it was creepy as hell for Lydia to befriend Aaliyah. On the other hand, I fully believe that Uche cheated. I fully believe that they were on the phone when she took that picture. And I also believe that in some roundabout way, he has something to do with those Instagram stories. His friends didn't just randomly go through their stories looking for Lydia. But at this point, I really don't trust neither of them. I really don't. We see in the previews for the following episodes that Uche is telling everyone that Lydia is obsessed with him and that Lydia followed him here. Like I said before, I don't know what to believe when it comes to these two, but I'm tired of the both of them. And this episode had me feeling like, everybody, pack it up, go home, start from scratch, okay? But tell me your thoughts below. How do you feel about everything that went down between JP and Taylor, Stacey and Izzy, Uche and Aaliyah, Uche and Lydia, Lydia and Milton? A hot ass mess. Don't forget to hit like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see y'all in my next video. Bye! Roxy says we're gonna talk